Hi, I'm Daniel Foley, and in this video we're going to talk about God's goals for your life. What is the standard? Where is He trying to take you in your life? Where are we trying to go? I don't know if you've ever asked these questions, but just a simple prayer of God, what is success for you? What are the goals that you're trying to get me to move towards? Now, the first goal I want to talk about is found in Ephesians 4. I believe it's verses 13 through 15, where it says that we're all supposed to come in to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of Jesus so that we grow into the fullness of the stature of the measure of Christ. We grow into the fullness of Christ. We grow more and more like Jesus on a continual basis. And it says one of the byproducts of that is that we would speak the truth in love to everyone. So we're growing into Christ, and we're learning to speak the truth in love with everybody. Now, the other part of this verse is that as we're growing into Christ, as we're growing up to that measurement, that standard that is Christ, one of the other verses we're going to link with this is found in 2 Corinthians, I believe it's 9:8, and it says that God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that you'll be self-sufficient in everything, not needing, you'll be furnished for every good work and charitable deeds. So kind of three goals here. So first, the big picture goal of we're going to be growing up into Christ. We're going to be becoming more and more like Jesus, learning to speak the truth in love and not tossed about by every wind of doctrine, it says in that Ephesians passage. And then underneath that, we're going to have these kind of three subsets of goals, which are we need to learn to be self-sufficient. We need to be learning to have our sufficiency met in God. God's grace is everything we need. His grace is sufficient. And so we need to learn to become more and more self-sufficient. We need to be doing good works. So we need to be aligned with what is His purpose. What is the work that He's called me to do? What is that work? In the book of Acts it says, set apart for me Barnabas and Saul or Paul for the work that I've called them to do. What is the work that you've been called to do? And finally, for every charitable donation. So we need to be contributing to the needs of others as well. So three things here. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to be doing the work that we've been called to do. And we need to be contributing to the needs of others. We're doing those three things, and we're growing up into Christ in the unity of the faith. So everyone's coming together, unified in their faith and working together and contributing together. And we are learning to speak the truth in love. That's the goals. That's the standard that we're trying to move towards. And so one of the teachings that I do is on this abundant life blueprint. So we've got 7 rooms in the house, things like purpose and health and family and finances, order, time, and community. And it all feeds up into growing in Christ, growing in Jesus. And in those 7 rooms, we can apply those things. Are we growing more and more self-sufficient? And that, for example, am I financially free? I'm not dependent on anyone for financial needs. I'm not being a burden to anybody financially. I'm self-sufficient. I can generate the things that I need. In my health, I can take care of my body. I can take care of my health, whatever it may be. Am I getting to this place of self-sufficiency where I'm learning to rely on God? Now, part of this is that it says God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that you can walk this out. So you can abound to every good work, and you can be self-sufficient. So part of this is, I talk about it in my book, 7 Days with Jesus, is if we want to really step into the inheritance that God has for us, we have to get a deeper revelation of grace. And so sometimes what I've learned is that sometimes you might be stuck. So how do we actually walk this thing out? Sometimes you might be stuck in a situation where maybe you're praying and you're asking God to change the situation. And you've seen other situations where you've prayed and He's made changes and you've seen breakthroughs. But sometimes, kind of like Paul, where he talks about his thorn in the flesh, God says, I'm not going to remove that situation, but my grace is sufficient, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. And so it's by His grace. The only way we can get to this standard is by His grace. And so when we're talking about grace, it's one of the things that I've learned recently. Sometimes God won't change your situation, but He'll give you the grace to see the opportunity that's hidden in that situation. He'll give you the grace and the power to get through that situation, to endure it, so that you do come out where you are abounding. Even though you've been in a tough situation, you come out where you're still abounding. So sometimes a simple change would be, rather than praying for God to change a situation, maybe you've been praying and asking for God to change a certain situation in your life. Maybe the prayer needs to switch and say, all right, God, give me the grace that I need to get through the situation and to abound in it and to turn it around and to make it come out for the good, because God has the power to do that. And that's one of the things that we have to learn to do. So if you have a situation where you find that you're not seeing God turn it around and nothing's happening, things may be getting worse, you might need to ask for grace. Now, one of the things about grace is I talk about this in my book, Cracking Heaven's Code, on the coding structure that God has in place, which is that grace is related to the number 5 in the Bible, and that's related to short term. It's related to today. Today is the day. So when we're talking about today, that means you need grace every day. Okay, so there's new challenges every day, and you need grace every single day to meet those challenges. So one of the simple prayers that you can start to pray that's going to help you move toward this standard that God has for your life is, all right, God, I need your grace today. So what is grace? One of the definitions of grace, we've probably all heard it, is this idea of unmerited favor. So when we have grace, we have opportunities. We get opportunities that maybe we wouldn't otherwise get. Sometimes it buys you time. So you think of like a grace period, if you're late on your bills or whatever it may be. Grace buys you time, okay? Grace gives you opportunity to get things right. So maybe you're in a situation and God's not changing the situation. He's giving you grace to turn it around and to get it right. Because maybe you're doing something that you need to learn. Maybe there's a lesson that you need to learn. He's going to give you grace to turn that situation around rather than changing the situation. And so that's one of the things we need to start praying for on a consistent basis is His grace. And grace is a daily thing. And it talks about when we approach God boldly, one of the keys to grace as well is being bold, okay? The more bold and courageous you are, the more you encounter His grace. And so when you start to get into this mindset of continually taking action, so every day, if I'm going to be taking action, I'm moving towards the things that He's called me to do, I'm moving towards the work that He's called me to do, the contributions that He's called me to do, it's going to require grace. I can't do it on my own. I'm going to need His grace to power me through that. And so as we're taking action, we're starting to put things into practice, we're going to need grace. We're going to need grace to show up in a bigger and bigger way. And when we do, He's going to start to move us towards these targets. So just a summary. The main goals. What is the direction God wants to take our life? Number one, we're growing, becoming more and more like Jesus. We are coming into maturity in Jesus. You think about maturity. When you're mature, you're patient. You can endure. Sometimes you need grace to endure a situation. You're patient. You can endure. You can control your mouth. You speak the truth in love. You don't just start, freaking out when there's pressure on you. You start to grow into maturity. You can control and master your emotions and your thought processes and these things. And sometimes you need grace to overcome those things. Maybe you have an area where you're slipping up and, all right, God, I need your grace, your power to overcome this area that I'm struggling in. I need that grace. I need that power. And then as we do that, His grace is going to abound to us. And it's going to have 3 effects. 3 things are going to happen when His grace starts to flow in your life. He's going to make you self-sufficient in all things. In every area of your life, He's going to make you more self-sufficient because He's going to be the one that meets your needs. He says He can supply all of your needs. And then number 2, He's going to get you doing good works. Okay, you're going to get more and more clear on your purpose, and He's going to be moving you towards greater and greater works. And then number 3 is you're going to be contributing at a higher need to the community and to the people in your life, and you're going to be, being a greater and greater blessing. So God's grace is meant for you to abound, to become a greater and greater blessing to others in this world. And that's the plan. That's the goals that God has for our life. That's His definition of success, is that it's Him working through you to be a blessing to others. Now, He needs you. Biggest thing is to believe. Jesus said, my house will be a house of prayer. The biggest thing you can do is pray and believe and then take action on whatever He tells you to do, believing that His grace is going to empower you through whatever you're trying to get through. Sometimes it's the power to endure. Sometimes it's the power to change a situation, whatever it may be. His grace is sufficient for you to make all 3 of those things happen.